Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. With the release of Dawn of the Z Legends right around the corner, I figured it was time to give my predictions on what the top decks of each color are going to be, so we'll be doing that in today's video. If you guys are new here though, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are tons of ways to do so down in the description. But today, guys, if you want to get ready competitively for the new format and new mechanic, make sure to check out the Patreon down in the description. I just wrapped up all the archetype and color breakdown articles, and I'm going to be rolling out some deck profiles for my highly competitive decks real soon. Today or tomorrow, the King Piccolo article should be up, and I think that is the best green deck that we have seen in quite some time. A little bit of a spoiler for this video's content, but we'll be getting into all this in today's video. Let's jump right into the color red. So you will notice that there are only old red decks up on this slide. This is the first time that I've done a video like this where a single color gets two slides. Just goes to show how many possible contenders red has going for it. Let's start with the color red by talking about the red Z deck. The red Z deck has quite arguably, or I don't even know if it's arguable at this point, the red Z deck just has the best pool of red Z battle cards. Between Rush Attack Vegeta and SS4 Defender of Life, red decks just have access to insane battle cards out of the Z deck. So starting with U7. U7 is actually quite good at comboing between the Ultimate Essence Gohan engine, comboing the Skilless cards, and the addition of the Supreme Kai of Time Black 1-drop that combos for 10k when your hand is low. U7 Goku is known to play any combination of those cards. So by comboing those cards, you're setting up Z Energy very nicely. And besides that, U7 is doing what U7 does. It plays 1-drop threats, gets very aggressive, and then you have Ultra Mastery and the Vegeta God Rare as your top end. The deck's doing much of the same. Nothing really got hit in regards to anything actually going into Z Series, so there's no real reason to think that U7 is not going to do so hot. But I think in terms of popularity, it's going to be a toss-up between U7 and SS4 Gogeta. I really think it's just going to be a popularity poll between which people think, or hold in high regards as their favorite character, because at the end of the day, it's UI Goku, it's SS4, like, people love those things, right? And that leads to popularity within the casual side of the card game. But anyways, moving on to Bulma. This one's a bit more interesting to talk about because there are a lot of matchups. Honestly, most of the matchups in Ultimate Squad feel very unfair when you're playing against Bulma, because there's not much you can do to deal with the mass amount of blockers the deck puts out, because even if you board wipe them, they're going to Bunny Girl, go into a Baba, go into a Bandages, or go into a barrier blocker. But there are two decks coming out in Z Series that have very interesting Bulma matchups. One of which is the SS4 Gogeta deck, which the 8-drop Triumphant Together just attacks all the blockers. So like they can't proc Bunny Girl, you're gonna clear their board guaranteed, and then they have to deal with a ginormous 35 triple strike at their 10k leader they can only super combo out of. So that is a really interesting matchup dynamic. I will say I have seen Bulma beat Gogeta going first, so maybe it's a bit more dice rolly and kind of tech dependent. But the other matchup I want to talk about with Bulma is the new Yellow Ape Goku, because that leader swings and taps all the non-barrier blockers. Yes, Bulma does have barrier blockers in the form of the 1-drop Mai, but at least if you use that leader, you're only dealing with 1 to 4 blockers of that barrier, as opposed to 10 total blockers, right? Like some of those board states where Bulma has like 10 plus blockers, especially for yellow, where you have to rest active mode cards to remove them, it can feel pretty helpless. So that leader has a pretty interesting matchup going into Bulma as well. I'm not ready to say that Bulma is unplayable yet though, because its matchups into other decks seem fine. And like I said, I've seen Bulma beat SS4 Gogeta going first. So it just goes to show that maybe Bulma's a bit more fair now because it has somewhat worse matchups, but time will tell on that one. I still don't see Bulma becoming very popular, even though it is very degenerate in certain matchups. People just haven't seemed to gravitate towards the deck because, I don't know, for whatever reason. But anyways, Launch. I think Launch is also looking very good going into Z Series. It did very well towards the end of Ultimate Squad format. I do think Launch is going to have to make some slight adjustments, though, going into the new set. And in my opinion, that's going to be adopting more blue into its main deck, mostly for Dirty Burst. Same thing as Bulma. If you have to deal with that 8-drop 35k Gogeta swinging at you and you can only super combo out of it, especially in Launch where your super combos don't draw cards, you're going to be in big trouble. So you want to be able to main deck that Dirty Burst, have the answer to various different boss monsters. Dirty Burst is not only good against SS4 Gogeta, by the way. It's just a good card in the meta in general. It was a main staple of Blue Deck's last format. So if Launch can adopt it, I think it'll be in a pretty good spot. And now let's talk about some of the new red decks, SS4 Gogeta and Red Sin. You'll notice Pan is not listed here. I do think Pan is a fine deck, but I don't think it quite stacks up to either of these two decks. I'm not going to delve too much into SS4 Gogeta. Honestly, I've talked about it a lot in the past several videos. It's just severely good. Many people peg it as their best deck in format. I don't blame them. Sin, though, a little bit overshadowed by SS4 Gogeta, and again, for good reason in my opinion, but I still think Sin is very, very good. It can be very aggressive, even going second between all the different dragons you can spam out, and that 8-drop 35k triple striker is no joke, especially the fact you can give it critical and or barriers, pretty insane. And another good thing that Sin is going for it's got good unison control, because so many of the effects allow you to minus not only battle cards but also unisons. So I do think all 5 of these decks are going to look pretty good going into next format. Obviously, you're not going to have 5 red decks like running the format. Again, I don't expect Bulma to be very popular, but I can definitely see any of the other 4 red decks being somewhat popular. So we're going to have to kind of see how things fall into place there. But anyways, let's move on to blue. All right, off the rip, you will notice there are no Zenkai series blue archetypes pictured here. I talked about this a little bit in the tier list video from a couple days ago. Budokai Goku I think is a fine deck, but I can't in good faith say it is anywhere near as good as any of these 3 decks, Gamma, SS4 Vegeta, and Baby, which all performed incredibly well last format. Again, nothing got hit going into Z series, so there's no reason I think these decks will do any worse now that the new format's coming around. You could maybe say that like the game is going to get a bit more aggressive with some of the Z stuff. That's what a lot of people have been saying, and that might not bode so well for your more hardcore control decks. But like I just said with launch, blue has access to Dirty Burst, which is a great answer to SS4 Gogeta and is a great answer to many other high-end boss monsters that get cheated in. Even Red Sin has that. All kinds of decks had that. Like, it's even good in the blue mirror. So blue does see mole position almost solely because of Dirty Burst. Like I mentioned, SS4 Vegeta, Baby, your higher end control decks. Gamma, definitely a lot more mid-rangey. You're not looking to spend as much energy on your threats as Vegeta or Baby are. I think Gamma is also looking real good because of the fact that it untaps 3 essentially at the end of each turn. That might even put in an argument for SS3 Reboot, which would definitely be an honorary mention of this video. That deck just doesn't quite have the results that these 3 decks have, but I would consider that because, again, the untap 3, set up Dirty Burst, all that kind of good stuff. Blue does seem very well positioned in my opinion. Then we have yellow. So we have 2 contenders from last format and 2 newcomers. Trunks and Turles, again, nothing got hit going into the new set. No real reason to believe these decks are not going to do particularly well. Trunks is a real interesting case too, because this deck can actually use Zenkai very, very well. You build up an abundance of the 1-drops that you play via your different effects, and you can easily combo those, put them into Z energy, use them for Z battle card costs, and now you can just replay them from the drop area thanks to your leader's awakened effect. So that's actually a very good Zenkai synergy. And yeah, I mean, just same old shenanigans of Cooler with a double strike leader, which honestly almost all of these decks have access. Actually, every single one of these decks can do a combo of that sort. Swing with the leader, somehow gain double strike, use Cooler, use the Piccolo Gohan SCR, and go to town. That's kind of just a yellow staple at this point now, that whole entire interaction. But anyways, Turles. Not going to use Zenkai quite as well. Turles does not really combo for much value. In Turles, you're more so just comboing when you have to. So it's not going to use Zenkai all that well, but it's still going to be a pretty solid SS2 Gohan spam deck. And that does put a ticket in for Yardrat Goku, but Yardrat Goku is going to be even worse at using the Z deck than Turles is because the deck's just full of unisons. But it's still a somewhat difficult deck to interact with because not every deck can deal with kind of like that unison spam. And SS2 Gohan Z Fighter, obviously an incredibly busted unison, so if you can abuse the empower mechanic of that unison, get it stacked with markers, in certain matchups, you're going to be in for a good time. Let's talk about the new yellow newcomers. So we have the new Goku Ape Depth coming out of the starter deck. This one looks really, really good, has super solid offensive board control, and honestly, it just procs a lot of really good yellow cards. Like, the leader alone procs Poutine and procs Bergamo, so as where in some other yellow decks, it's kind of a bit more difficult to set up those cards. This leader does it on command whenever you want, as long as you draw those cards, which is real good. And I personally do also like the main deck engine that the Great Ape deck comes with. I think it's got a lot of barrier. The board's very sticky. Doesn't really have any intrinsic barrier removal, but there are some cards you can tech to help deal with that. And I'm a world champion, as meme as it might seem. I think it's actually a pretty decent draw card. Like, you're paying 1 to draw 2, which is actually what you're also doing in Yellow Trunks if you think about it. You're paying 1 to evolve and then drawing 2 cards. So if you're using Bulma Unison in Great Ape to play a Goku for free, paying 1 to use I'm World Champion, it's almost a similar interaction as where you're doing the same thing in SSB Vegeta, and you're also setting up your post count and your steadfast Goku count, so that's pretty good. Talking about Bardock, I think it's a bit different from all these yellow decks in the sense that it is the most aggressive yellow deck. You can actually spam apes out quite easily, and the apes all have really good effects. You've got a dual attacking ape, you got a double strike ape, you got an ape that KOs rest mode, you got an ape that taps things. Your leader actually also KOs things and negates their skills, which is just a really nice niche for yellow decks to get around things like indestructible or other weird permanents. So again, yellow looking real good. Honestly, in my opinion, I still think the top 3 colors are going to be yellow, blue, and red, but green is definitely rising up from the bottom of that totem pole, looking a little bit better in each set. Still not on par with the other colors in my opinion, but you've still got 3 solid green contenders. King Piccolo, again, my opinion, best green deck we've gotten in quite some time. I do think it's better than Cell and then Cooler, but I still think that Cell and Cooler are fine decks. They did okay last format. I think they'll still do okay going into Z series if people choose to dedicate their time to them. Still seem like fine decks, but it's no surprise that for whatever reason Bandai has not been showing green the same love they've been showing all the other colors. And that brings me up to black, which I legitimately don't even think black has a noteworthy contender going into Zenkai format. The only reason I have these 2 pictured here is because 1, Shroom and Salsa is still new, so there's still some room for ingenuity. Maybe Shroom and Salsa will surprise us, but I kind of doubt it, unfortunately. And Gogeta Xeno, it's been a deck that's like topped here and there in random events. People play it sometimes. It's getting a good card with the SS4 Gogeta Indomitable Might, the new Black-Red Saiyan. That card's not bad. I don't expect black to do all that much. I honestly expect it to be the worst color in the format. Hey, maybe we'll see some Finn, maybe we'll see some Hatchiyak, but it's going to be super sporadic in my opinion. So black definitely coming in as the worst color this time around. Maybe next set we'll change that. But anyways, guys, I do want to know in the comments below what you think about these top meta strategies for each color. Did I miss any decks, or are you playing any decks that are not listed here? Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.